Okay, here's a cheap and easy method if you want to waterproof the joints between things like a security camera and the main cable. For example, a security camera such as this has a security camera with a cable running from the body to two connections. You then use the other cable which goes to the DVR box, which connect to each other. So for example, the red one connects to the red one, which is the power source, and the yellow one connects to the yellow one. Has a little twist on mechanism which locks together. That then is firmly together. Unfortunately, the general idea to install a security camera is to drill a hole in the wall and then thread this through the wall into a drive, into the house, or you may also drill it through the fascia board and into the attic space, and where this is in a dry location. Unfortunately, that's not always possible. I mean, I've seen a lot of people with these pinned to the outside wall, and sometimes you have no other option other than to pin this and run the main cable into an appropriate area in the wall, which will then lead to the main DVR box. So if you have no option other than to pin this to the outside walls, you want to make sure that these joints are waterproof. Now I must stress, this method I'm going to show you isn't 100% guaranteed to work, and you should only ever do it on low voltage items such as security cameras. Never do it on a main electrical item such as something plugged into the mains, high voltage, as you could cause an accident. So to waterproof these two joints in a fairly simple and very cheap method, all you need to do is buy yourself an inner tube. Now this cost me £1 from Poundland. I mean, this is the inner tube. This is a nice big inner tube. I mean, I recommend you try and buy a small inner tube, as it provides a better seal. This particular inner tube is 24 inches times 2.15. Try and get the smallest one you can find, the smallest kind of diameter, I mean, as it provides a better seal. The second item you'll need is some cable ties. Again, you can pick up a small packet of cable ties such as these for around £1. So total costs will cost you probably £2 to £3, maximum, I would say. I mean, other items you might need is some insulation tape or duct tape, but that isn't entirely necessary. So to proceed with this, we've got it in the tube. Once you've got it in the tube, you want to cut it to the appropriate size. You can see I've cut this now. When you cut it, try to make sure you cut the ends nice and straight, as it helps with a cleaner seal. So make sure you cut them nice and level. So once you've cut your inner tube to size, the next job you want to do is, bear with me as I adjust the camera. You now want to join, want to join the cables together. So the red one to the red one, and the yellow one to the yellow one. The yellow one twists on. Ideally, I would use either insulation tape to just wrap around the joints. It prevents them from pulling apart once inside the inner tube, and it also helps to keep any water out in case it does penetrate the inner tube. Either insulation tape or waterproof duct tape will do. So actually, I've done that wrong. So first thing you want to do is thread the inner tube over the cable. Once the inner tube is over one cable, it doesn't matter which end you start. You can either start with the cable that goes to the box or the cable that goes to the camera, it doesn't matter. So once the inner tube's over the cable, you can then join them together. As I previously said, I did use some excuse me, I did ideally use some insulation tape just to make sure that it's a better waterproof joint. Once they're joined together securely, make sure they're securely together. You can then slide the inner tube over the connection point. Ideally, when you do this, you want to make sure the connection point is in the middle. There are plenty of, this inner tube is actually quite thick. I don't even see the thickness in the camera, but it should ideally last a good number of years, hopefully 5, 6, 7 years before it perishes. So once the inner tube is over the connection joints, make sure it's in the middle. Just use your fingers to feel. So once it's over, you then want to make sure that the cable the ends of the cables are nice and straight and not twisted, like so. You want to make sure that you put them in the middle. Make sure they're central. Once you're satisfied the cables are nice and straight, not twisted, make sure that they're squeezed together tightly. You then want to fold. You want to centralize the cable. Then you want to fold one part of the inner tube underneath it, like so, and then the other part over the top. And just hold that together and squeeze it together. Hope you can see like that. So it's the inner tube's evenly over both parts of the top and bottom of the cable. Once it's like that, you then want to get a cable tie. Again, cable ties will last years and years and years. It's a little fiddly doing this, so you may want to practice first. I mean, there's enough inner tube in one inner tube packet for at least 5 or 6 joints, I would say, easily. So once the cable is over, pull it into place. At first I would just gently, don't do it too tight at first. Just make sure all the rubber is evenly folded. Then you can pull the cable. Just pull it tight, but not mega tight at first. As you can see now, that's created a fairly good seal. Obviously this is still, because the cable tie is not right at the top, but it should be a good seal between there. I'm not going to pull it fully tight quite yet. And I'm going to do the other end. The other end is exactly the same. Make sure, obviously because the cable splits into two, make sure the two parts are not crossed over, nice and flat, nice and straight. Place them in the middle. Just use your fingers to feel. Tightly pinch them together. Again, fold the bottom and fold the top. Then get your cable tie again. Do exactly the same. Again, put it fairly tight, but not too tight, as you may need to adjust something. As you can see, I've now sealed both ends. Now, just to make sure that no water can penetrate them, I would now use another cable tie and seal a bit further down. Again, just fold the rubber over, feel the cable inside, and just fold the rubber. Just try and make sure the cable inside is not twisted, nice and flat. Again, just I'll put this in. You can just feel the joints by here. So just about half an inch away from the joints. Again, just do the cable tie up fairly tightly. As you can see now, that's provided a nice seal. There's one seal here, another seal here. Again, just feel inside, make sure the cables are not crossed. Make sure they're nice and flat, ideally. Like I said, you may want to have a practice before you do this for real. Again, I'm just going to do the other side. Just fold the rubber over. Try to feel the cables are nice and flat. Again, just pull it up fairly tightly, not too tightly. We don't want to damage anything. So once you're satisfied, I mean, there's a good look at the thing now. I know it doesn't look too pretty, but it's not too ugly. Obviously the black in the tube blends with the black cable. I mean, you can now, once you're satisfied there's a good seal, I can feel the connectors inside, they're all together nicely. Obviously it's best to do this before you pin it to the wall, as it's going to be difficult to do it, if you're up a ladder, etc. So, I mean, once you're satisfied there's a good seal, like if you wanted to, you could put the first, this cable tie on first, the one just before the joint. You could then squirt some silicone inside, ideally some clear silicone or black silicone, and then you could put the cable on the end, which would then provide, an even better seal. But generally that's not necessary. Once you're satisfied it's all done, just give them a little tighten. I won't pull them too tight, as you don't want to damage the cable. Just pull them tightly, fairly tightly, not too tightly. You can then trim up the ends. Have a look at it then. You can, obviously I would try and make sure the cable ties nice and tidy. I mean, try to match them up so it looks better. I mean, you can now obviously get the idea if this was connected to a garden fence or an outside wall and you needed to run this along. You could then pin the cable to the wall or the fence. I mean, that would then, you could pin it up to here. I mean, I know that doesn't look like the prettiest thing in the world, but it doesn't look too bad. I mean, from a distance you wouldn't really notice anything. That should, I mean, once you pin this to the wall or the fence, I would always pin it horizontally, not vertically, because obviously if water started dripping here, it might eventually make its way in. But horizontally, that should provide, I mean, I've tried this and I've had no problems. And just bear in mind, never do this on on a product which is run on the mains. This is low voltage. Very low voltage this. I mean, it won't cause any problems if any water gets in. It'll probably just trip the thing out. So, I mean, I can't 100% guarantee it'll work. I've tried it. It does work, but I can't guarantee it'll last forever. I'm hoping it will last at least 5-6 years before the rubber perishes. Just remember to put horizontally so water doesn't have a chance to drip down the cable and inside the rubber. But these cable ties, 2 cable ties either end, should provide a good solid. Just make sure the cables are nice and flat together, not twisted. They're side by side as they split into 2, and just pull the cable ties fairly tightly. Not don't overdo it, as you just might damage the rubber and the cable. But that basically cost £2, and I could do easily 4, 5, 6 of these joints. I mean, always make sure this is pinned against the wall and not on the ground. Don't do it horizontally. That should provide a good water seal for any low voltage product. So thanks for watching.